Hello, my friend, and welcome to the Sales Podcast. I'm Wes Schaefer, the Sales Whisperer, your host. If you have not been listening, go back. You missed Sean Whalen dropping some truth bombs, maybe some other little bombs, so be careful when you tune into that one. The guy brings some heat. Also had Yakov Savitsky, very smart marketer, internet marketer, social media marketer, expert in LinkedIn. You want to tune in to that. After today's guest, we've got Nicholas Byerly coming up. He and his wife, I know they live here locally in SoCal, and they are some young people doing some big things, so you're going to like that episode as well. Andy Stumpf, I got to meet not too long ago and jumped out of an airplane with him. So very cool guy, retired Navy SEAL. He was shot, medically retired, is now setting records in parachuting and using those squirrel suits or flying suits, they call them. But what a cool guy, humble guy. He admits how he basically fell. He got into a deep, dark place after his injury and rehabbing, and how he fought back from that valiantly and successfully. So you're in for a treat. This morning I already had a training call with a client, speaking with him and one of his top salespeople. And, we were getting into following up with either past customers, so working on churn, right? People that had canceled. We were also talking with people that did not show for a demo. And the question arose, should you text people? I started talking about direct mail. And the truth is, you need to get into every form of media, multimedia, multi-step. So as many different modes of communication as possible, especially when you call that prospect and they say, hey, I'm not checking voicemails. The quickest way to reach me is by text. So text them, okay? They just gave you instructions and permission on how they want to be communicated with. So do it. Even just a few years ago, I might not have said that. Text was still a little bit more personal, but it's becoming much more open now. People are using that a whole lot more. On the CRM Sushi podcast, I had Chris on, Chris Basson, and he has Sales Message, which is actually a plugin for your CRM, and it works standalone as well. But it's like Gmail for your text messaging. So your customers will hear from you and your staff, but it's coming from a number that you own. Because here's the thing, like with my client right now, his salespeople are texting their customers, but they're texting from their own personal cell phone. So when they leave the company, and they will, people leave. You don't stay for 30 years and get a gold watch anymore. So A, you don't have any history of that correspondence that your team is having. And B, the salesperson leaves with the contact info of your clients. So check out that episode, CRM Sushi podcast, and you'll see a live demo with Chris on how this works. It's really cool. But what I was telling my client is you have to have multimedia, multi-step, sequential, pre-built sequences running. And so for the people that with the churn, they left for only one of three reasons. And these guys have software, right? It was either too expensive, or it didn't have the features that they were looking for, or it was too complex to use. That's really it as far as objections they could address. Okay, if they went out of business, fine. That's an issue, right? You're not going to overcome that. So I told them they needed to come up with a series of talking points, 5 to 7 key features, key improvements. So when they call, they can leave a voicemail and in a quick 30 to 60 seconds address that new point. Then hang up, send an email that talks about the same points and says, look, I'm going to give you a call in a couple of days. If you have time before then, here's my contact info. And using tools like Infusionsoft or HubSpot, you can automate that. You can automate most of it, right? Because it's going to assign a task to the team. Assign a task to Joe. And then, hey, Joe, begin the churn, recovery sequence. And it starts with phone call number 1 to Mary. So you call Mary, leave the voicemail, hit task completed. The system, when you set it up right, will send an email to Mary. Hey, Mary, this is Joe over at ABC Company. Just left you a voicemail talking about feature number 1, right? Improvement number 1. That's new since you left us, right? It's new since you stopped using the software. If that is of interest to you and you'd like to see it in more detail, here's a link to schedule a demo, or feel free to call me or reply to this email. If I don't hear from you, I'll give you a shout in another couple of days. So as soon as you mark that task complete, it should send that email and then create a task for you 2 days later to follow up. Now, if you're really getting serious, you have a letter in there. Maybe the task is leave the voicemail, boom, complete it. Next task is send a postcard immediately, right? And 2 days later, make a call. So now you got a voicemail, you got a postcard. That may take 2 to 5 days, okay, but it's going to get there before you make your third or fourth call for sure. If they have one of those, send me a text message. Now you've got a voicemail, you got an email, you got a postcard, you got a text message. You look them up online, you find them on LinkedIn, you find them on Twitter, you have a couple of different touch points. All those different things, slowly work on them. And then if you're doing it right again, and if they're worth pursuing, if it's a big enough prospect, you send more direct mail, you send a catalog, you send testimonials, right? Cut through the clutter. And they admit it, they're not doing direct mail. And so you have to zig when everyone else is zagging. If your customers are relying on retargeting and Facebook ads and everything else and not doing direct mail, you need to do direct mail. And direct mail could be a simple postcard. All right, but you gotta get serious about getting after your people. And the phone still works. As overwhelming as all this stuff is, right? Facebook and reporting and retargeting and pixels and right side of the feed versus the sponsored posts, and should you do Instagram? And, yes, test all of that. But picking up the phone and having real words, real case studies, real impact still works. You can't wing it, right? You've got to have these pre-built in advance. And so when task number 2 comes up and it tells Joe to call Mary, make the second churn, reignite campaign, Joe's not wondering what to say. He's going to read that script, okay, and get it done. So that's your sales tip for today. If you like it, please let me know. If you want more tips like that, let me know. If you got an issue, something you're grappling with, you just don't know how to handle, you like some additional insight, hit me up. You can leave a comment on this episode. You can email me, contact me, find me on Facebook, wherever. But these are the kind of things we get into in the Make Every Sale course. So if you want lifetime access and damn near real-time access and feedback, the group is still not huge. So I'm answering questions on a regular basis, and people like it. That's what I like to do. So the more people in the group, the more I can give, the more I can help one-on-one like that, even in a group setting. All right, so makeeverysale.com. Come join, come grow. Now let's bring on Mr. Andy Stumpf. Andy Stumpf, you pushed me out of an airplane, but we're still friends, man. Welcome to the Sales Podcast. How the heck are you?
I'm doing good, and let's remember, technically it wasn't me that pushed you out. I was physically there, but I think it was mostly your choice, and you had somebody else strapped to you.
Well, I was strapped to somebody else, but you were strategically placed third. I was second. So, we're still waiting for the video proof. I think I felt an extra hand shoving.
When it's required, I'm usually there to lend that helping hand. It doesn't happen often, and the entire group that we had out there, it was great. I think everybody was fully enthusiastic and ready to go on their own. Yeah, it was great. So thanks for coming on. You are you're a man on a mission, right? I believe I read that somewhere very recently. I know you hate doing the tell us about yourself. So a quick summary, though. 17 years with SEAL teams, right? I don't know if it was a well-placed bullet or maybe a poorly placed bullet. I guess it depends on whether you're the shooter or the recipient, right?
and it's your career short, but not your activities. You are, who are you teaming up with? I saw something with Skull Candy or Kill Cliff or.
Yeah, so Kill Cliff is probably my main sponsor. Skull Candy was a great sponsor. I was with them for about 18 months. I'm not anymore. But if you see the Man on the Mission video stuff, I mean, they put all the legwork into producing it, and they produced it at a really high level. So I'm very grateful and fortunate for that. I'm very lucky. I have Rogue Fitness, who helps me out on the equipment side of the house. I have 511 Tactical, which is footwear and apparel. It's kind of the tactical realm for police, fire, LEO, but I use it for everything that I do, to include base jumping. Compex, Graham watches. I mean, Tempur-Pedic. I'm very lucky and fortunate to have brands who are kind of powering and fueling me to do the things that I love to do.
So you're like a NASCAR driver, except you jump out of planes, son. You got the patches.
Yeah, and I only do one logo at a time. I don't think it does a very good job. Look at those NASCARs. It just looks like a different type of urban camouflage because there's so much stuff on there. Maybe we'll just do one at a time.
All right. So for our listeners, I like to tie things in. And, the reason we met was you helped arrange a day of activities for 10 of us that were the top fundraisers for the Navy SEAL Foundation. We're kind of continuing my SEAL week that I did a couple years ago to raise money for my swim. Air Force guy in the water, it's like a monkey with a football, but I digress.
Cautionary tale. Cautionary tale.
Hey, but I made it both times. So, hey, who says an old dog can't learn new tricks? But so after you were medically retired from the Navy, I mean, you were saying you didn't have a plan, right? It was premature, right? You planned on making a full career out of it, and all of a sudden, you're left going through physical therapy. You're out of the Navy, and you're like, what the hell am I going to do with my life, right? And I know a lot of my listeners have been, they've been laid off, they've been fired, they've been downsized. Maybe they started a business and it failed. Maybe they've started a business and it hasn't quite failed, but it is failing. How did you make that transition from, literally top of the world, top of the game, elite fighting force to done? Chapter 2, turn the page. How did you make that transition?
Yeah. I spent the vast majority, especially when I was young, all I wanted to do was be a SEAL. So when I was in high school, while my friends were studying for the SAT and their college applications, I wasn't doing any of that. Like, I truly had no plan B, which in hindsight was a terrible strategy. I don't recommend it because I didn't know how many people actually got hurt in training. And I didn't realize that until I went back as an instructor. So I got fortunate when it came to that to make it through on my first attempt, and then get into the SEAL teams. And the job requires a little bit of selfishness, and you have to be myopic on what it is that you're doing. And, you get to the end of a career. Mine ended about 5 years before I would have made it to my full retirement endpoint. And, I woke up one morning and literally and figuratively put a uniform away in the closet and walked out of it and was out of the military. And I realized I hadn't put a lot of time and thought and effort into what was going to be next in my life. And I went on to Google and searched the average lifespan of a human being and realized I have a little bit more time left on the clock. So I probably should figure out what it is that I'm going to do next. Now, when I got to that point, I didn't realize how much I was going to struggle with it because I did derive a lot of my identity and a lot of my sense of purpose from my previous occupation. And it was actually the fundraising for the SEAL Foundation that kind of got the train back on the tracks for me. It kind of, because without the military, there's some great things about the military and there's some negative things. One of the great things is that it kind of provides for you the boundaries. You can be very focused inside of the boundaries of what the military wants you to do. You get out of the military and those boundaries are removed, and it lends you the opportunity to maybe get a little bit lost because you now have more latitude to maneuver left and right. So I didn't really know what I was going to do. I was working for a strength and conditioning company when I got out, but it got to the point where I needed to to move on and do something else. I was doing some military training on the free fall skydiving side of the house, working specifically with the Air Force. I was doing a little bit of public speaking. I was doing a little bit of consulting, and I was very kind of just where the river takes me. And then when I got approached with the idea about the fundraising, which was not my idea, I truly don't think I've ever had a unique idea in my entire life. I draft off the good ideas of other people. It really recentered my focus, because what I really wish that I could go back and do my old job. Like every day, I do miss it. I miss aspects of it, but I do think it was important, and I would love the opportunity again to throw my body armor back on and go put my toes back on the line and fight for our country. But I can't. But I realized that if you're supporting the families of those that are, that's the next best step. And in doing that, it got me really focused on that particular joint that you mentioned, the Man on the Mission campaign. And in the course of that, I started getting hit up to do more public speaking, which I had done a little bit of for one form or the other for the last decade. But in doing the Man on the Mission stuff and then the public speaking that came from it, I realized that at the end of the day, like, my new purpose in life is that I just want to make a difference. And I thought that in the military, I had a huge ability to do so. And now that I look back on it, you have a lot of impact, but it's only as far as you can see. Like, if you give me a rifle, I can impact something only as far as the bullets can reach. And in the moment, that's great, but it's arguable as to whether or not that can shape this country or it can shape the world. And then now I look at talking with people and educating and try to make a difference for them and help them figure out what it is that they want to do, and talking about things like leadership and accountability and responsibility and character, which I think we can agree we're a little bit of a crisis right now in the U.S. That has impact and breadth and depth so far beyond what I can see. It can be generational, it can be organizational, but it started with me. I had to do some real soul searching and figure out what it is that I wanted to do next. And that was a super long-winded answer to a short question, but for people who the trap door got cut out from underneath them, I mean, you got really two choices. You can sit there and feel bad for yourself, and you could blame it on everything around you, whether it be the president or politics or the environment or the climate or random events of life. Or you can sit down and look in the mirror and figure out who you are and what you want to be in the future, and then get back to work. It took me about 1.5 years to do that, to find that purpose again. And now I have a pretty clear idea of where I want to get. Still trying to navigate exactly how I'm going to get there, but I know my compass is back pointing in a good direction, and I can follow that when questions come up.
Right. So, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I mean, in a nutshell, it sounds like, you kept busy, right? You had your fingers in multiple things. You're saying fitness training and parachute training and a little bit of speaking. You stayed busy, and through being busy, an opportunity presented itself. And because you were doing other things, I mean, kind of like, you're eating junk food, eating some chips over here, some French fries over here, and you found, something healthy, and you knew it, right? You knew it right away once you found it. Is that a safe analogy?
Yeah. I mean, for me personally, idle time, sitting around and feeling bad for myself, nothing good is going to come from that.
Right.
You have to put one foot in front of the other, and you got to turn inches into feet and feet into miles. And people, they'll say, "Oh, no, you're so lucky you get to skydive for a living." Well, I get to skydive for part of my living because I've been jumping for 19 years and slowly and incrementally going down the road. And it's funny to me, a lot of people, when they see success, they want to equate it to luck. But luck is really the combination of opportunity and hard work. Yep. If you don't work hard, you can have all the opportunities in the world, and nothing's going to come from it. And that hard work drives those opportunities as well. So it's a combination of things that appears to be luck, but it's not. It's incremental progress and just never being satisfied with where you are or your station in life. Just drive it forward an inch at a time. Yeah.
And I love what you were saying, about making a difference. We got to hang out with Jocko in the morning and do some jiu-jitsu and, listen to his podcast. And, people have this persona of a Navy SEAL, right? And I got into this because my classmate's a SEAL, and he just retired. And and he's just the happiest go lucky, laid back dude.
Yep.
Right. And, but we see movies and we think Rambo and you got a knife in your teeth and, you're just killing everybody that you see. And, but Jocko said something to the effect in one of his podcasts quite a while ago, that basically it's like, I want to, the success is like being the light, right? Bringing light to not bringing the darkness, not bringing the pain. Cause everybody wants, tough, macho, but it was impactful to me to hear this tough SEAL jiu-jitsu guy say, be the light, don't be the darkness. Right. And then I hear you saying the same thing, make a difference. Would you say, is that the key for all of us, is to find that thing where we can make the biggest impact and then just go full force in that direction?
I think that's part of it. Let's remember Rambo was an Army guy. All right, he wasn't a SEAL, so that's a bad analogy. However, he was awesome. And
those guys, he was pretty tough. I'm just saying. And Chuck Norris, too. Chuck Norris was Air Force. I'm just saying. But anyway, go ahead.
Chuck Norris was Delta Force. All right, let's
in real life, he was Air Force.
Oh, was he?
I think he was. I think he actually. I'll Google it while you're talking.
All right, yeah. I think Rambo shot a helicopter down with a bow and arrow, though, so I give the guy respect because I'm sure that happened in real life. I think in the terms that Jocko was using about being the light, I think that's what it's about. Being a SEAL and doing what we did for a living is not about bringing the pain. It's about being a beacon of light and standing for the things that this country was founded on. Now, I think this country is floundering a little bit when it comes to those principles, but as an individual soldier, and especially as a SEAL, you have that opportunity to be that beacon of light. It's not about bringing the pain. It's about being an example and setting the example. So yes, people need to find what it is that they're passionate about and then, drive forward. And don't listen to what other people tell you should be passionate about, and don't look for things that other people are passionate about. Look for those things in yourself and then just set the example that you want to see. Be the example for somebody else.
Yeah. Isn't that hard though sometimes? If it was so easy, everybody would do it. Everybody would live up to their potential. Yeah. We wouldn't have this character crisis. Was it easier to stay the course being a team guy and having others hold you accountable? And how have you managed to stay the course being independent?
Well, let's be honest. Things that are difficult generally have value. Things that are easy, if you look back in your life, the things that have come easiest to you probably are the least impactful and have the least amount of value. So in my mind, life should be hard. If it's difficult for you, then you're going down the path that should matter. The accountability inside of the SEAL teams, there's two types of discipline. There's the externally imposed discipline, which most people would look at like Full Metal Jacket and the Marine Corps drill instructor yelling at you. Like that's the stereotype of, and I'm sure you experienced this too from being in the Air Force. It's like, and that's the beginning of boot camp, right? Because you have to kind of break down the individual from their feeling more, their sense of self is more important to the becoming a sense of an organization that serves others. But there is no drill instructor inside of the SEAL teams. So in the teams, it's internally imposed discipline. The standards they're blind and they're published. I could find the standards for shooting, for jumping, for fill in the blank. But there's nobody really looking over my shoulder, making sure that I'm living up to those standards. It's my own sense of not ever wanting to be the weakest link in the chain and not ever wanting to let down the people to my left and right. It's that internally imposed discipline that really helps you stay the course. Because the reality is you're never going to always have somebody over your shoulder. You can't rely on people motivating you, because what's going to happen when the situation in your life changes? You don't have access to that information anymore. You don't have access to that person anymore. It has to come from inside. The only long-term approach is internally imposed discipline. And but again, people look at the military, they think it's the opposite. Whereas in the SEAL teams, if there was the standard and then I had to show up and meet it, there was nobody sitting over there and watching me and learning in that environment around those people that I never wanted to let down, that is what has helped me stay the course, because I take that same mentality forward from the military. I mean, and I speak about this a lot when I do the public speaking. Like there's really nothing unique about me as a human being. What's unique in my life is the people that I was surrounded by and the examples that they set. Those examples that they set have made me into the person that I am today, and I take those lessons forward. That was the difference for me.
When you were injured and recovering, where did you find that discipline, or did you find it lacking sometimes? I mean, were you ever downtrodden and, kind of, oh, woe was me? And if so, how did you overcome that? Was it just that incremental, just staying the course?
Yeah. When I got hurt, I was in my mid-20s, and I was at a point in my career where I had always wanted to be, and it was a huge hit to my confidence. I spent a lot of time wondering whether or not I had done something wrong on that target. And finally, came to the realization that it's just the statistical nature of the job. But it basically felt like taking an Indy 500 car that's in fifth gear or whatever high gear that they have and dumping it in reverse and leaving the transmission on the racetrack. And I allowed myself to feel bad for myself, to go down the rabbit hole of, I'm hurt, I don't need to do anything, I need other people to make me better. And I got to the point where it was a combination of what flipped the switch for me was just a combination of the medications that I was on and a realization that my brain wasn't functioning the way that it used to function. And it was through my wife asked me a very simple math question based on the price of gasoline. And in that moment, struggling to figure out how much, 5 gallons of gas was going to cost. And this is not a complex mathematical problem. I realized that I had to make a change, but I didn't look to anybody else for that change. I basically woke up the next day and went into the gym and started on a very low trajectory, distant horizon goal, and did it myself. Again, with the help and assistance of others, but those people cannot do it for me. I had to be the one to go in there and actually make myself sweat to recover. I mean, you can work out next to somebody, and if they're sweating 5 times more than you, that's not actually making you any better. It's how much you can put on the floor at the end of the day that makes the difference.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because I was listening to an older episode of the Jocko podcast, and Echo Charles said something. He read in a book. It was something like, you can't manage time, but you can manage your energy. And then from that, you can manage your time, right? So it sounds like that's what you realize. Like, let me get in shape, right? Let me get off these drugs. Let me get all these pain pills, whatever, clear my head through physical energy, and then I'll get clarity.
Yeah. And it's, and the doctors who are, obviously very educated individuals are following their course of action that they believe to be best. But at the end of the day, I'm the one who lives between my ears, and I'm the one who sees the impact of their protocol on me and can tell whether or not it's working. And working with them and for myself, I was able to shift course and at one point in time, I had 14 pill bottles on the counter. It was a pretty colorful succotash of pills that would be in the palm of my hand that I was washing down with Jack Daniels. Actually, not Jack, it was Captain Morgan. That was the soup du jour of the day.
Well, that's what Navy men drink. I mean, they gotta drink the rum.
Yeah, but you know what? Like, the doctors and my wife and the people who were there to support me, none of them could take those things out of my hands. It was on me to do that. And for myself, I've always been a very physical person, so I needed to change what I was doing physically to impact what I was doing mentally. I've always found it to be like that. Like, when I get stressed out, if I work out, I can think better, I can tolerate it better. It's I agree. Like, the clock is always going to keep ticking. The only thing I can manage inside of that clock is the energy expenditure that I have and where I choose to apply it.
Right. So before we turned on record, you had mentioned how you feel kind of self-conscious about having your own domain name and stuff. Yeah. And, but the reality is we're in a social world. We're in a digital world. But people love celebrities. Right. And to make that difference, I'm always working with entrepreneurs saying, if you don't toot your own horn, nobody else will.
Yep.
Right. And especially as Americans, I mean, most households, we're growing up, our parents are swatting us on the rear if we're bragging about ourselves or talking about ourselves. But now we're entrepreneurs and we have to. Right. And so can you walk us through that? How have you made that transition? Because I'm always trying to help my clients, understand and embrace putting themselves out there, to make that difference. People need to know who you are. They need to find you. They need to hear your message, see your training, see you breaking records, see you fail to break a record and come back and break the record. So how have you made that transition?
The social media aspect for me has been very difficult. I didn't exist on it. I think I started like 2 years ago. And because I was contractually obligated to do so for the endorsement and sponsorship deals that came from the jumping side of the house. And then the website, it just seems to me so overly pretentious to have a website with my name on it. But I realized that, for one, like you mentioned, in this day and age, it's almost a layer of legitimacy that people will not pay attention to unless you have it. But there's two ways that I look at it. One, you could be this, self-aggrandizing promoter of yourself. Look how good I am. And you can paint a picture of yourself that is the opposite of reality. And I see some people doing this on social media. I'm not saying that everybody does, but they focus on putting only what they think people want to see and only the high end of the sine wave, and they avoid the low end of the sine wave. So it's like you look at these people like, oh my God, they have a perfect life, and this, that, or the other. Well, because you have a choice between what you can let people in on, whether it be a website or social media. So for me, I don't actively broadcast like I have that domain name, but I've never broadcast that it's there. I'll point people at it when they want to know more about who I am because it saves me time. But I just try to make it as a reference, and especially for entrepreneurs. If you want to make it easy for people to figure out who you are and what you're doing, put it out there on a digital platform that they can access with their fingertips. Whether or not you love it or hate it, just look around. People are on their phone 24/7. It's that layer of legitimacy. The one rule that I have for myself is that I try to make it as realistic to my life as possible. I'll post the good stuff and I'll post the bad stuff, and it's there. Believe me, I'm the farthest thing from a celebrity, but having those things, it does help. Like I said, the biggest point is it's a pin in the ground that people can look at to get a better idea of who you are.
Yeah. Well, once you posted like the 200th picture of me on your website, I had to reach out and tell you to, just slow it down a little bit.
Yeah, I had a rapid pace. I needed to back it off a little bit.
Yeah. So I'm glad you did, but those 18-wheelers with your name all across the side, that's a bit much going up and down the 15. So I
wouldn't be able to sleep at night. Like that, that's never happening unless I own a moving company one day, which is also never happening. I just think you got to use it judiciously. Don't live on social media. Because it's artificial. It's such a bizarre ecosystem. And you can tell the people that get too wrapped up in it. It's a facade of what real life actually is. Like, there's nobody as a human being doesn't experience the sine wave of life. So if you see somebody who only has those super positive things and everything's going perfect, I don't know. It just, to me, seems to be artificial.
Yeah. And so for any of our listeners from the Army, look up the sine wave. It's a mathematical thing. It's kind of it's like an ocean wave. It's it's up and down, ebbs and flows. But I did look it up. Chuck Norris was in the Air Force stationed at Osan, Korea, as an MP. That's where he started learning karate.
Karate,
bam, bam, baby.
Yeah,
Air Force. So what are you working on now? Where can people? I'm gonna link to you everywhere, Instagram and channel and stuff. But you've set some records on what was it? It was distance in a wingsuit.
So there's 2 records associated with lateral distance in a wingsuit. One is the distance you travel from exiting the airplane until you open your parachute. Which is measured by GPS. There was 2 GPS units on the back of my helmet. The other one was basically you add from where your parachute opened into where your feet touch the ground. So just two measurements of distance. And again, the whole purpose behind that, I never even filed for the records because I don't care. The purpose of it was to try to do something that people would pay attention to, that I could then lateral towards the support for the Navy SEAL Foundation.
Right. Cool. So what does that mean, though, before you open your chute? I mean, do you just have to go fast in a plane and jump out, and it's just momentum carrying you?
Well, I was in the wingsuit, obviously. So, I mean, the wingsuit's...
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I got you. So it was in the suit before you opened your parachute. I'm thinking of the wingsuit as kind of a parachute.
No. I mean, people ask me all the time how you land a wingsuit, and my response is you can do it once, but if you want to continue jumping, you got to deploy your parachute. So yeah, it's stepping out of the aircraft until your parachute comes off your back was the first measurement.
And was it the same jump, or those are different jumps, right?
No, same jump. I mean, that was the beauty of. I don't know why they had those records set up the way that they did, but there was 4 actual records that we were attempting in one jump. One of them was the highest jump of the plane just wasn't capable of getting that high. The other one was the longest time in free fall, which is kind of tied to the exit altitude that you get out at, and then the other 2 were based off the distance.
Right. Very cool. And with all my episodes, I link to the Navy SEAL Foundation, and I'll mention that as well. It's helpwestswim.org. I'm still doing it. It looks like my 17-year-old daughter, she wants to do it this next year. My cousin, he's a cop up here, he wants to do it. A buddy of mine that's a former Marine, he's going to do it. So, great charity, great cause, supporting the families of SEALs who were either killed or injured in the line of duty. So follow Andy. He's supporting a great cause. And even Killcliff. I mean, was Killcliff founded by SEALs? I know we have had the president of the company on. He was a former team guy.
The president is a former team guy, and the founder, Todd Elric, was a former SEAL as well.
Right. So it's a great energy drink and a lot of new products as well, huh?
It's a recovery drink. So not a lot of energy in there. It's more designed for the post-workout. But yeah, I mean, they're dialing in their recipe. They have 4 flavors now. It's a good stuff. Check it out for sure. And every purchase of a can, percentage goes to the SEAL Foundation as well.
Right. Sounds good. Well, thank you, sir. Andy Stumpf.
Thanks, Wes.
Athlete. Pretty decent Navy guy. So thanks for helping me survive my first jump ever. It was great meeting you.
Hey, you're very welcome. Let's do it again sometime.
All right, man. Have a great day.
Right on, Wes.
What a good guy, huh? What a good story. I hope you got a lot out of that. I did. My partner, Bob Khaleesi, he was actually in the room. I recorded that in our hotel room when I was at the Infusionsoft conference. And so I didn't have my mic and all the good stuff, to have a little higher quality sound. But Bob stayed the whole time. And he said he loved it. So he got to see behind the scenes. And I asked the questions that I'm interested in, but I feel like I've got my finger on the pulse of being an entrepreneur, being a veteran, being a human being, understanding how to dig a little bit deeper and get to the heart of the matter. And Andy was just so forthcoming. He's open, he's honest. And these are the kind of men and women that are serving in all the armed forces, especially these guys in special forces, special warfare. They have a reputation as being these crazed killers, right? And while they certainly have the ability and capability, if you see Andy on the street, you'll walk right by him. He's just a normal dude. He's probably about my size. He's probably 6'2", probably 220, 230. But not, just wearing a T-shirt and a ball cap. I mean, he's not full of tattoos. He's not running around with a scowl on his face. Just a quiet, humble human being. He spent a day and a half with us, bringing T-shirts and taking us to dinner, lining up the jump. And he was just there every step of the way. Met us for dinner again the next night, and he just is wanting to give back. So, not only was he an accomplished veteran in special forces, he owns 2 Guinness Book of World Records right now. But he's just loving life. When I saw him, I think he lives about 5 minutes from the parachute place, and he said he jumped 45 times that previous week. So he stays sharp. So, Are you getting that many repetitions in your business? Are you staying that sharp with your skills? You've heard me talk about, since January going to jiu-jitsu. I'm going 4 to 6 days a week. I'm sore. This past weekend, hurt my knee and went anyway. Basically rolled as a half human being. Couldn't use my right leg. But it was still worth it. I still learned. Still did some good things despite the limitation. So are you fighting through the things? And you know what? I couldn't do that if I didn't have a team, if I didn't have a great instructor, if I didn't have great partners, people going through it with me. I get more one-on-one training from the higher belts that are not the instructor than I do from the instructor, right? Because, the owner of the gym, he's got hundreds of people to see to. And, of course, he spends one-on-one time with us when he sees things, but he can't get to everybody. But it's the blue belts, it's the purple belts, it's the brown belts that stick around. Every day I'll stick around for an extra 10 minutes to an hour spending time with other black belts, brown belts that are just hanging out, willing to share. So I could not grow as fast as I have been without that type of support. And that's what you get in the Make Every Sale course. Okay? Dozens and dozens of people that are there asking questions, probably questions you have, maybe questions you haven't thought to ask. And they're there to answer questions. They give their input. I give my input. And that's how you're going to grow faster, is when you're willing to fail, when you're willing to put yourself out there and grow. And we always say you don't lose when you go to jiu-jitsu, right? You either win or you learn. And that's the same thing in the Make Every Sale course. We're going to show you how to win, and you're going to learn from your defeats, okay? And whoever is willing to be bolder, faster, fail more often, that's who wins. We always hear the story of Thomas Edison. I didn't, fail. I just found 10,000 ways to not make a light bulb, some BS like that, right? And I'm sure he said it, and it sounds so romantic now. But I promise you, if you were to make 10,000 cold calls or follow-up calls and were told no, you wouldn't do it, right? After you got your 10th no, you'd be ready to quit for the day and go drink. So who's helping you through those failures? Who's helping you stay the course? Even Andy, they call themselves team guys, right? You're on the team. It's the Navy SEAL teams. And they even call, Team 1, Team 2, SEAL Team 6, we know of, through the movies and whatnot. But they're teams. They're a team guy. Who's on your team? What team are you on? If you're not on a team, I guarantee you're not hitting your goals. And if you are hitting your goals alone, it's because your goals are too small. They're too simple. You're not stretching enough. So join me on the Make Every Sale course. You'll get bigger goals and you'll reach them. Thanks for listening. Please share this. Please give us a 5-star review. And as always, remember to sell different.